Welcome to Resilient Minds 365, where we discuss the resilient stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, and students with mental illnesses to encourage you to strive, thrive, and live in abundance. I'm your host, Cleoni Crawford. Today, guys, we have a special guest. Today, we're going to do a switch in this episode where we're going to be hearing the perspective of a caregiver's perspective of mental health, dealing with how she dealt with um, the mental health in her own family and what she had to do. So her name is Nicole Waldron. Nicole Waldron is an event specialist and inspirational speaker. As the founder of Victory Speaks podcast, she helps her listeners identify the blocks that are preventing them from living a victorious lifestyle and provides them with tools to live a victorious lifestyle. Nicole also uses her personal lived experience as a caregiver to a son with a mental illness for advocacy. She shares her story and sits on many boards to affect change in the mental health community. With that said, I present to you Nicole Waldron. Thank you very much for being a guest on our show today.
Hi, Cleoni. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. So the first question I'll ask you is tell us a bit more about your profession and the Victory Speaks podcast.
Well, my profession. So I'm multifaceted. I'm an event specialist, and I have been in the event world for well, maybe since I was like 16 or so. So it's a long time, over 30 years, doing events, from fashion events to conferences, awards. The only thing I really stay away from is weddings. I only do weddings for like really close friends, and
Mhm.
no bridezillas.
No
Um,
bridezillas.
no bridezillas. And that has also helped me pivot into doing different things. I've been in production. I have been in television production, working with magazines, and just doing all sorts of different things. It just has taken me on many journeys. I've worked in the Senate. I've worked for an MP. So the journey has been quite interesting in my life. And then through the experience that, when you start producing events and stuff like that, it's very easy to transition into producing almost television in some ways, because some of that pivots into that, or those skills transition into that.
Mhm.
And so I've always, I remember a few years ago, I shouldn't say I remember, a few years ago, I was actually going to have a talk show. And the person who had hired me to do it, but then something happened on their end. And even though we had filmed the first 18, 14 episodes, uh,
Wow.
and we went all the way up to Niagara Falls and filmed it. We had people from all over. Some things happened, and we just didn't continue. So it's always been a passion of mine. It's always been something that, talking, speaking, interviewing people. And then when the pandemic came, it was like, I kind of tested it out last year a little bit, but I just felt in my spirit. I knew in my spirit I had to do it. I woke up one morning, 2 o'clock, and I was trying to register Victory Speaks for like over a year, and couldn't get it. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, it was there. It was available, and I registered it. Um,
Wow.
so I knew, and then I kept getting the signs. I knew God was saying it's time. And um, and so Victory Speaks is like, Nicole means victory of the people, and so my name speaks victory. My name means victory. And so I've always been about speaking life into people, and whatever I do, it's to motivate, enlighten, and empower individuals in their purpose. So even if I'm doing work for a company, that organization, or even if I'm volunteering, must be, empowering others or taking others to another level. It's not about the money, even though I should have probably been looking more at the money, but it's more about alignment. It's more about people fulfilling who they are called to be. And so this is what Victory Speaks is all about. And even now in this time, it's more important that we remember to speak victory to ourselves so that we can live the life that we are called to live and be victorious. And victory looks different every day, but embracing those small victories, and as it all comes up together, it becomes, one beautiful glass that is full, you know?
Hmm. Wow, sounds very powerful. Definitely very, very powerful. So, with that said, we are going to move right into the interview. So, I'd like to for you to tell us more about your story, your mental health story, what your experience was, and basically what happened.
Okay, so I'll try to give you the Coles now. So I've actually been aware of my own mental health. It took me a while to even know when I went into depression,
Mhm.
maybe a few years after I had my son, and life is changing and things are going up and down and being affected. Um, and remembering watching a person on TV one day, and she was talking about her depression and her life,
Mhm.
and that just really got me. Oh, this is what's happening. This is why you're up and down. And then so dealing with that over the years and taking, well, because you have to do some mental fitness, and we're really not taught mental fitness, we taught physical fitness more often.
Right.
And so that really impacts on even the whole journey that I've been on. And then also in 2015, at the end of it, my son was in a car accident, and a bike accident, sorry. And that he retained some head injuries and some other injuries to his face that led to transgeneral nerve pain in his face. So that caused a lot of trauma, and so he experienced mental health crisis at various points after that. And so that's been part of the journey, and learning the mental health care system, and advocating for him, and then seeing what family caregivers um, learn or know, or how they support it or not support it, and how lonely the journey can be, and how people don't know what to say, even those that it's like, if you get struck with a critical illness like cancer or like a heart attack or something, people know what to say, people know what to do. They come around you, they bring you, do you need a casserole, do you need a ride somewhere, can we do groceries? But when it's mental health, there's very few people have people who will say to them, okay, can I do this, because they just don't know and understand. And your capacity, whether it's yourself or especially if you have a loved one, and especially if you have a child or a sibling, the journey is very different than if they were struck with Alzheimer's later on in their life, because you're looking at a younger person.
Mhm.
So that's just a little bit of it in a nutshell.
Okay, okay. So the next question I have for you is, how old, you said this was in 2015.
2015, so he was 20. He was just going on 21. He was just about to turn 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you deal with that knowledge when when you found out that was dealing with a mental illness? How did that affect you as a mother?
It was hard because he went into what is called psychosis, and
Hmm.
so that basically changes the personality of a person,
Right.
because it comes with paranoia, it comes with lots of different behavior, um, and so I watched somebody who was very peaceful transition, and not knowing what to do and not knowing where to go for help, and then trying to figure it out. Fortunately, I had a couple people in my life throughout my time who actually worked in mental health, so I was able to call and sometimes get some advice, or because the thing is, when you're trying to figure it out, the system is so
Fragmented?
interesting in Canada, because it's not always that easy to get help. It's not always that easy when you need to know where to go, because even if you get them to the hospital in the emergency, there are limitations that the hospitals and stuff have. Because if they're not an imminent danger, the mental health acts as if you're not an imminent danger to yourself or to someone. They can only put a hold on you for like 72 hours
Right.
unless they can see that something else is happening, and then even that can be a battle. So the system is an interesting one to navigate, and then getting counseling for a black male, and then even we didn't even have a diagnosis because we didn't know what was going on, because we're dealing with for him we were dealing with multiple injuries,
Hmm.
uh, the trauma to the face, the trauma to his body. So there was a lot of traumatic brain injury. So we were dealing with a lot of stuff, and so it's hard to watch as your loved one, your child, um, go through something and you're helpless. You know.
Right. Wow. Wow. So, with that said, I'd like to know, so what are some of your coping mechanisms when you are to deal with when you're dealing with with your son? What are some of the things that you have to do to just to cope? What are some things you do for your self-care?
So my self-care first involves prayer. I have a very, I am not a religious person. I'm a relational person. I am a believer, and I have really worked on my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And so my prayer and my worship is important. And also having some rocks around me. And the rocks being those iron sharpeners, those people in your life that I can go to, that trust me and that can either pray for me, that can even talk me, give me counseling. Um, and then there was some unhealthy things, which is the emotional eating. Chocolate can be your friend, so I'm convinced chocolate is a vegetable because it comes from cocoa. uh, so some chocolate, and the thing about it is when you're going through something like this, it's you just don't have the capacity. I forgot how to cook. I forgot how to, you know, like I would just things that were just easy normally for me, I was just forgetting. So it affected my memory. And it's only as you start realizing, and
Mm-hmm.
and and if you're not tapped into the right places, they're so focused sometimes on the patient. So whether it's your sister, your father, whatever it is, they forget to tap into or bring counsel to those that need it, and they forget the families. And so making sure that my vitamins were up, making sure my B12s and my vitamin D and my vitamin E and all those different things. I should have been exercising more, but again, I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have, because even just doing it by myself was a lot. I cried a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, and crying was good, but really and truly, my circle of my family and my core friends were very important to the journey, and the support that I needed.
Okay. Okay. So what do you do when you feel overwhelmed? I mean, by it all. What are some things that you do to help you with that? I know you pray.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. That's the first thing. And sometimes it's as simple as being self-compassionate and just doing nothing, just watching a movie, TV watching, or finding something uplifting to listen to. Comedy I found was good because comedy brings the serotonins and all those different chemicals. It was helping me to get revived again.
Mhm.
And so things like that, and then also the advocacy part, getting involved, learning more about mental health, learning more about the supports that are out there. Because I'm always giving back. So I couldn't see that I would be going through something like this just for myself and
Mhm.
not being able to help someone else, another mother, another father, another, brother, sister, grandparent. I don't have all the answers, but tapping into some of the resources that I had, and asking for help, you know, or sharing. Just sometimes it was just a matter of just talking, because sometimes there's no advice to get. It's sometimes you just need to get it off your chest, what you're feeling.
Right.
No,
Definitely. Definitely.
yeah.
Okay. The next question I have for you is, so how do you balance your life, work, social life, children? What do you do to balance everything, to keep everything together?
Well, I don't always have it balanced. It's an interesting thing because we like to have this great thing of balance, but it's scheduling, and it's appointments, and it's sometimes it's redoing that schedule and making that list.
Mhm.
um, and I put reminders on my phone,
Mhm.
and the things that I'm working on and getting organized, because I'm such a community advocate and dealing with so many things. I have to be organized, um, but then remembering what's important first, and going back to the formula of, you got to put your mask on when you're in an airplane, if it's going down, before you help anyone else.
Mhm.
And so looking at that and saying, okay, reprioritizing my priorities is what I've had to do, and what I'm continuously doing, because as things are changing, and even with my podcast, it's making me, I have to now get things really in order. So I'm literally doing schedules of, this is what's happening today, this is what's happening tomorrow I'm going to work on this, you know trying to get better at meal planning, because you're meal planning for yourself. And no matter what the illnesses your loved one has or the age, you have to do the meal planning. You have to get them to eat.
Right.
and you have to remember to eat. And sometimes takeout is your friend, because
Mhm.
as I tell you, on this journey of mental health, you're not getting the meals coming to you. And this is a 5-year journey, so people kind of get tired. They have their own lives. And but I've had a couple of friends who've stepped up, and sometimes they'll surprise me.
That's
So that keeps me balanced, and my friends keep me balanced.
okay.
I have the mentors, my sister mentors, my brother mentors, that keep me balanced, and make sure that, Nicole, how you doing today? So
Mhm.
they make me self check in, and that helps with the balance of my own self.
Okay. So when you're with your family, did you find that you had a lot of family support when you were dealing with the mental health of your son,
Yes,
or
yes,
also?
yes, because we are close family,
Okay.
and I'm fortunate that we all live in the same building. So yeah, we all do. My two sisters, my parents. So we all live, we're just different floors apart. And it just happened that way, and sometimes you don't even realize when God is really ordering your steps, and he ordered our steps. And people say, like, I live in a co-op, which is very different than living in a condo or something like that, because it's very community centered. So even though, for most part, I know most of my neighbors, you
Mhm.
know, and that was one of the beauties of living in a co-op. It's we have social activities, we don't have them as much as we used to, and then there's COVID, but
Yeah.
we have meetings with our members, so it's very engaged, and so my family support is very much there.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Next question I have is, so what type of community supports are available to you? What were available to you, and what is available to you as someone was with having a child with a mental illness? What's available in the community?
So one of the things that's out there, especially for the Black community, is the organization that I first went to was SAPACY, and their program inside of CAMH. And so SAPACY is a mental health program for the Black and Caribbean community that was started like over 30 years ago. At some point, it went under the umbrella of CAMH. And so you don't have to be like in a hospital where you have to be in the catchment area.
Mhm.
You didn't have to be in a catchment area. So I got a lot of support there. And even through CAMH, some of the social workers there were really supportive and got me involved in the Family Advisory Council committee, which I sit on. And I got supports from them. And then I have friends who actually work in the mental health field who would check in and give me, some of the advice or the counsel that I needed, asking questions when I didn't know where to ask questions. And then there were actually people who are going through the same experience. And that's the other part of it. The peer support is important. White, Black, whatever, it doesn't matter. When it comes to the illness, there's no color.
No problem.
There, yeah, there's parts, yes, we're affected by it, but there's a part of the journey that you don't have to explain to another mother, to another father. You just understand. And I remember one mother just taking me for lunch, going to a conference, and we just connected and we just went for lunch. She just said, Nicole, I'm going to pick you up and come take you for lunch. And just that bond. And so we check in with each other. How are you doing? How's your son doing? How's your son doing?
Mhm.
And we just check in with each other.
Mhm.
And that's what it is. It's that check in. We need more supports for families,
Yeah.
uh, because we don't have it. We don't have the supports even at work. So that was one of the challenges, that trying to get employers to understand, if you have a loved one who may be suicidal, and when you have to go on suicide watch, you need time off. When if they're paranoid, you can't leave them alone, and because you don't know what can happen. Or sometimes so it's the employment piece is support is so needed from employers. One of the challenges I found out there was a lack of support was, um, people there is in Canada, you can apply for self-employment if you have to care for, there's a caregiver benefit.
Right.
um, but the challenges for caregivers with anyone with a mental illness, your loved one has to sign the papers. You're not going to get someone with a mental illness to sign off and say that, unless it's a really unique case, to say that um, they need your help for care,
Mhm.
because most times when they're in crisis, they don't believe that they're in crisis. So it's kind of I haven't even attack that beast yet.
Yeah.
But that's a big beast that people don't get. You don't get that self benefit unless you're really fortunate to have someone who can sign off and say, yeah, so yeah.
Wow. That's just interesting. I mean, it's sad that the system doesn't support families a bit better when it comes to mental health, because it takes a lot out of someone to have to, number one, go to different people's appointments, and if
Mhm.
they're hospitalized, have to go to the hospital. Like this is time that is taken, you know what I mean?
Lots
So
of time. And you have to get, what people don't know is that even when your loved one is in crisis, they still have the right to they have to give permission to the medical team to share information. So they may be paranoid.
mhm,
Um, and And if you could be the person that they think that is just trying to hurt them, you're not going to get the permission. So then your hands are tied. And then when they get released from the hospital, they're coming home with you, and you may not know what medication they're on. You may not know their care plan or their safety plan. So it's a big challenge when the Mental Health Care Act, as much as we want to deal with the human rights of people, that when someone is unwell, especially in their mental health, and I'm not talking about, if they may have slight depression or some anxiety, that's different. But when you're dealing with things like psychosis, schizophrenia, bipolar, and multiple disorders and stuff like that, if they are in a place of crisis, families need to get involved, and we need to be given permission to learn and to know what's happening with our loved one, because we have to take care of them. And
right,
this is why you see so many people are on the street right now, um, because they get out of the hospital too early, without getting the health care. You have these lawyers that can get them out of the hospital, and they all talk to each other. And that's the thing, people get fooled because they don't understand when somebody's in crisis, even though they may be having a conversation like you and I, it's a
mhm,
conversation in that mindset of where they are. And it could be a mindset where their mind is tricking them. Their brain is tricking them. It's a brain disease that's affecting their mind and their thoughts.
mhm,
And so when they're there and dealing with that piece, um, it is really tough for families, because our hands are tied, and the doctors and the nurses' hands are tied, because they want to share, or they need to get information, but we can't unless permission is given, and unless that that first 24 hours of crisis, you can share the information with doctors, but after that, and then everything is documented. So I mean, there's so much to the system that young people are being criminalized
yeah,
because their mental health is not being addressed, and because they can get out of the hospital before they get treatment, and then they end up doing something not out of no fault of their own, because they don't have the capacity. And this is a whole capacity, there's a whole big thing about capacity and consent, but that's for another show.
totally understand. Wow. So the next question I have for you is, what can you do to support your child when they have a mental illness? What can you do as a mother? What are the different things that are available to you?
You need to get educated. You need to start learning about the system. You
Mhm,
need to learn about the illness. You need to let the medical team know that you're there, and what can you do and what can't you. You need to learn your rights, because it can be very shocking if you don't know your rights and your limitations. And you need to be very patient with yourself and with your loved one. Um, because you may think that, okay, just like we're having this conversation, you could be having a really good conversation, but it just may not make sense. And you're like, they can just think themselves out of it. No, it's not as easy as thinking themselves out of it. Otherwise, why would they need medication?
mhm,
um, and and I go back to the point of remembering it's a brain disease that affects the mind, the brain. Something has happened in the brain.
right,
And so education is huge, and really just talking and learning, and patience. You got to pack your patience. You got to pack your patience, and you got to not blame yourself. You don't blame yourself when your loved one gets cancer. You don't blame yourself when your loved one has a heart attack. It's nothing that you've done where you could have prevented. It is what it is. And so, you know, um, and then asking for help where you need the help, knowing, knowing when it's too much. And yeah, but you got to learn your rights. And don't blame your loved one. Don't blame your child. Don't blame your sister. Don't blame your brother, because it's many gamuts. It could be anybody. I sit in the committee I sit on. Some people are dealing with their siblings. Some people are dealing with their husbands and
Right.
their wives. So and this is it's very serious, and just knowing what you can't and cannot do, and then knowing when, to be stern, but you have to really have a good the important thing is to have a good medical team, and that's key, finding those people that can give you the support and the information that you need. Sometimes it's hard for me as well because it's not always there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. My next question for you is, so what resources did you find helpful, that were available to you in the actually that are available to help families with a mental illness in the community? What's available? What was helpful to you?
So what's helpful? I'll tell you what's helpful to me and what I also know that is out there. So CAMH was helpful to me, the Family Resource Center, because you don't have to be a patient there. Anybody can go, and if you're looking for information about mental illness, but whatever type, could be from Alzheimer's all the way, the A to Z of mental illness, they can help you. SAPACY, the caregivers at SAPACY, the medical team of SAPACY was good. And now they have resources in our community, like from CAFCAN, which is I can't remember the acronym, but they out of the JC, and they said they provide mental health supports. Um, and Now the Black Health Alliance has just gotten some funding to try and provide some support or connect with other individuals. But that, CAMH has been my main source of support and friends. And now I'm actually looking at the Canadian Mental Health Association for support as well,
Mhm.
because they have a different program, and they have like a circle of people that surround you, which is very different. So it's not just a physician. You have a physician, a social worker, you have a different, they have a team.
Right.
And I think their model is really good, and so that's a model I'm interested in learning more about, and probably even seeing we can get into.
Well, that team is called the Accelerated Care Team,
Right.
Treatment Team. I personally know about that, because I actually have receive resources from them. I
Right.
have I have my own ACT team where it basically what it is, it's with the Canadian Mental Health Association, and basically that's where they have your psychiatrist, your occupational therapist, your
Right.
case manager, your nurses, all of them together, and they come together and they meet with you how many times a week, and they give you your medication, they monitor you, they they basically provide you help so that you can be well in the community. So it's more for outpatients. So yeah,
Okay.
it's a really great
Yeah.
resource, really great
Yeah.
resource.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's what I love, and that's what I've heard. One of my friends, her son has a great team. So I'm like, yes, that's what we need, because you
Okay.
just never know.
Yeah, definitely. The next question I have for you is, what are three things you wish you had available when you were at your lowest point?
Um, Someone to just bring me some food, someone who could tell me what the next steps were, what to do,
Mm-hmm.
um, and a place where I could just scream. I wanted a place where I could just go and just scream, and then just come back and go, okay, I'm good now. Yeah.
Okay.
Just release without anybody wondering, okay, she's screaming in her unit. What's happening? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I needed a vacation by the water.
A vacation by the water. Don't we all? Don't we all?
That's what I still need. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And my next question to you is, how are you using your story to affect change in the mental health community now? What are you doing differently? What is your mental health journey? How has it helped you to affect change in the community, I guess?
Well, one, through my advocacy, sitting on the committee at CAMH for Families, the Family Advisory Committee. And at CAMH, I sit on some other committees. I sit on, like I sit on like 3 or 4 committees at CAMH. So that's one part, and bringing the family voice to those committees.
Mhm.
And then I sit on an organization called OFCAN. And so that's us, an organization for caregivers
Mhm.
in Ontario. And I also am now providing some consultation. There's a team, a group of individuals it's called the Reach Out Toronto, and they're providing insight and input into reports for the city in regards to how the police should respond, or should they have, what team should respond to a mental health crisis. And then also using my voice on through the podcast, through interviews like yourself. And sometimes I get invited to speak, and I think that's how we met.
Yeah.
Yes, so I was invited to speak by the Black Health Alliance, and just sharing, and just keeping people informed. And in 2021, on the podcast, I'm actually going to do a piece specifically for mental health and wellness. So we're going to have a special show just dedicated to mental health, and really focusing on caregivers.
Yes. Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
So, what words of hope can you give to our listeners, especially mothers and caregivers that are dealing with children with mental health challenges?
There's opportunity in the crisis. Um, Keep your hope alive. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. And
Mhm.
understanding that, look at your child, look at your loved one with compassion and not judgment. Look at yourself with compassion and not judgment. This is what we talk about loving each other and unconditional love. This
Mhm.
is when you really know, can I love somebody unconditionally? Because depending on what the illness is or how it may show up, it may not always be pretty. For some, it can become very violent. For some, it can be very harsh. For some, understanding. You have to stay in that mindset that if your loved one, for instance, goes into psychosis, you must not take anything they say personally.
Right.
Do not take it personally. It's not about you. This is their journey, and it's a hard journey. And my friend has this show, and she has this course, transforming your pain into power. What's the power you can find? How can you transform this painful experience into one that's powerful for yourself and powerful for your loved one?
Right. Powerful. Powerful. So, we are going to switch it up a little bit.
Oh boy, okay.
We're going to switch it up a little bit. As you can see behind me, there is a book that's
Yes.
called Music of My Life.
Okay.
Basically, it's about
Okay.
my journey with music therapy
Okay.
and bipolar. So, my question to you is, in regards to music therapy, what type of music do you like?
I like I like good gospel, uplifting gospel music. I like Caribbean jazz.
Mm,
I like jazz. I like certain kinds of African music.
okay.
I love African music. I love South African music.
Okay.
And of course, as a Trini, I love soca, you know?
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that said, if you were to think of a song that best described your journey, what would it be and why?
Oh God, a song that would describe my journey. That's a hard one because I have different songs with different parts. Like the song that's coming to me right now is Bob Marley's One Love.
Okay.
Every little thing is going to be all right. I'm going to try not to cry. When he says, 3 little birds outside my doorstep,
Yes.
singing sweet songs of melodies short and sweet. This is my message to you. Every little thing is going to be all right.
Beautiful.
Baby, don't worry about a thing
Yes.
because every little thing is going to be all right.
Yes. I love that song. Love, 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 love that song. So, Nicole, how can we stay in touch with you? What are your social media handles?
Oh, well, it's pretty easy. It is Victory. Speaks with an S, SPEAKS 7. And you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on YouTube with Victory Speaks 7. And then I do live interviews every Monday at 7. So far, it's every Monday at 7 on Facebook Live. And it's Victory Speaks 77. So you can see I love the number 7, right? I was born on the 7th. 7 is a number of perfection and completion. So 7 is my number. You know, my sisters and I are 7 years apart. My son was born on my birthday, which is the 7th. So 7 is pretty deep in my life.
Yeah.
I'm embedded in the 7. So Victory Speaks 7 for the main places, and Victory Speaks 77 for Facebook Live. And you can watch, you know, some great interviews there with some phenomenal people.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so very much, Nicole, for coming on our show and sharing your gems with us. I am pretty sure that you would have definitely encouraged some caregiver out there that is dealing with mental health in the family. So thank you so very much for sharing your story. And with that said, and to all you resilient minds out there, until next time. Please subscribe to us on all our platforms, and don't forget to rate the show and leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Also, join the community of resilient minds and sign up for our monthly newsletter at CleoniCrawford.com. Be sure to grab a copy of my book, The Music of My Life, on all Amazon marketplaces to get to know me better. And if you can think of one person that can receive value from today's episode or connect with Nicole's testimonial, please share it with them. Feel free to take a screenshot of this week's episode of the podcast and tag us on Instagram. You can tag myself at Only Cleoni or Resilient Minds 365 and today's guest at Victory Speaks 7. And remember, mental health is not a death sentence. Despite your illness, you can strive, you can thrive, and you can live a life of abundance. Until next time, I'm Cleoni Crawford, and I'm signing off.